In the 1601 Annal Ecclesiastici, the Vatican librarian Cardinal Baronius recorded that Joseph of Arimathea first came to Marseilles in AD 35. From there, he and his company crossed to Britain to preach the gospel. Missionaries were viewed with some skepticism by the native Britons, but were greeted with some cordiality by King Arviragus of Siluria, brother of Caractacus the Pendragon. In consultation with other chiefs, he granted Joseph 12 hides of Glastonbury land. Here they built their little church on a scale of the ancient Hebrew tabernacle. In Joseph's era, Christian chapels were hidden underground in the catacombs of Rome, but once the wattle chapel of St. Mary was built at Glastonbury, Britain could boast the first above-ground Christian church in the world. The Magna Glastoniensis Tabula, and other manuscripts go on to say that Joseph subsequently escaped and was pardoned. Some years later he was in Gaul with his nephew, Joseph, who was baptized by Philip the Apostle. Young Joseph, Jesus and Mary's second son, is traditionally referred to as Josephus. The Joseph distinction, Hebrew, Yosef, meaning he shall add, was conferred on the eldest son of each generation in the Davidic succession. When a dynastic son of the house of Judah, by whatever personal name, succeeded to become the David, his eldest son, the crown prince, became the Joseph, with the meaning he shall add denoting his royal heirship. If there was no son at the time of a Davidic accession, or if the son was under 16 years old, then the eldest brother of the David would temporarily hold the Joseph distinction. It would be relinquished to the senior line if and when a son was of age to inherit the style. By this strategy the existence of Jesus and Mary's son Josephus was also conveniently disguised in the West. He was generally portrayed as Joseph of Arimathea's son, or sometimes as his nephew, which of course he was. In either role he was no threat to the orthodox scheme of things, and indeed both definitions of his relationship, son and nephew, had genuine foundation, for he was Joseph of Arimathea's heir to the Ramatheo, Arimathea, distinction. When Jesus became the David, his brother James became the Joseph, and thus, the Joseph of Arimathea. This only changed when Jesus the younger was of an age to inherit the title. After the death of Jesus the Christ, his eldest son Jesus the Justus took over the role of the David, the Davidic king. His younger son Josephus, the new David's brother, then became the Joseph and the crown prince the designated Ramatheo, Arimathea. But until that time, while his brother Jesus II Justus, called Gaius or Jesu in Grail law, was abroad in Rome and Jerusalem, Joseph his foster father and legal guardian was his uncle James, the Joseph of Arimathea. Later, the firstborn son of Jesus Justus was Galanes, called Alan in the Grail tradition. In accordance with the custom of dynastic wedlock, Jesus Justus would have first married in September AD 73, his wife was a granddaughter of Nicodemus. The legacy of Davidic kingship, which was to become represented as lordship of the Grail, was promised to Galanes, and was in time formally passed to him by his uncle and guardian, Josephus. But Galanes became a committed celibate and died without issue. Hence, the Grail heritage reverted to Josephus' junior line, from there to the Fisher kings. As we have seen, Joseph of Arimathea had been to Britain with Mary's elder son, the 12-year-old Jesus Justus, in AD 49. This event is well remembered in West Country tradition, and is evidenced in William Blake's famous song Jerusalem. The stories tell of how young Jesus walked upon the Exmoor coast, and went to the mended village of Priddy. Because those royal feet did indeed walk upon England's mountains green, albeit the son's feet rather than the father's, a stone in memory of his parents, Jesus and Mary Magdalene, was eventually set into the south wall of St. Mary's Chapel, Glastonbury. This stone, which remains on the site of the original 1st century wattle chapel, is inscribed Jesus Maria, and in due course, as one of the most venerated relics of the abbey, it became a station of prayer for pilgrims in the Middle Ages. The original chapel was begun after Mary Magdalene's death, and the old annals all state that Jesus consecrated the chapel personally, in honor of his mother. It was, therefore, to the Magdalene, not to Jesus the Christ Mother Mary, that the Glastonbury chapel was dedicated by her eldest son, Jesus Justus, in AD 64. By the time of Mary Magdalene's death in AD 63, her son Josephus had become Bishop of Sarras Gaza. In Mallory's Mort d'Arthur, Sarras features as the realm of King Evelake, as mentioned in the story of Lancelot's son Galahad. The tale begins when Galahad inherits a supernatural shield of the Christ, and encounters the mysterious White Knight. Then within a while came Galahad there as the White Knight abode him by the hermitage, and each saluted the other courteously. "Sir," said Sir Galahad, "by this shield be many marvels fallen." "Sir," said the knight, "it befell after the passion of our Lord Jesus Christ 32 year, that Joseph of Arimathea, the gentle knight, the which took down our Lord off the holy cross, at that time he departed from Jerusalem with a great party of his kindred with him. And so he labored till that they came to a city that hight Sarras. And at that same hour that Joseph came to Sarras there was a king that hight Evelake, that had great war against the Saracens, and in especial against one Saracen, the which was King Evelake's cousin, a rich king and a mighty, which marched nigh this land, and his name was called Ptolemy le Faints. So on a day these two met to do battle. The White Knight's tale recounted that Evelake's Saracen enemy was Ptolemy le Faints, Ptolemy the Feigned, thus the false, who is also mentioned in the Antiquities of Josephus. The person to whom Ptolemy was brought from Sarras was the procurator of Judea, Cuspius Fadus, the predecessor of Tiberius Alexander, who had Ptolemy executed in around AD 45. The White Knight went on to tell how Bishop Josephus informed King Evelake that he would inevitably be killed by Ptolemy unless he left his belief of the old law and believed upon the new law. And then there he showed him the right belief of the Holy Trinity. Evelake was immediately converted, and the shield of the worthy was presented to him, whereupon he defeated Ptolemy. Josephus later baptized King Evelake before setting out to preach the gospel in Britain. The strength of the white shield lay in its red cross, and in a mystic veil that went before it bearing the image of Jesus. This is reminiscent of the conversion of Emperor Vespasian's son. As narrated in the Vindicta Salvatoris, he was cured of leprosy by an ethereal shroud which bore an effigy of the Messiah. In conclusion, the White Knight related that following Joseph's instruction the shield was placed for safekeeping with the holy hermit nation. It lay with him in the abbey after his death, to be retrieved eventually by Sir Galahad. Thereafter, in the dying words of Bishop Josephus, "The last of my lineage shall have it about his neck, that shall do many marvelous deeds." In the De Sancto Joseph and elsewhere, nation, or nocion, is described not as a hermit, but as a prince of the Medas. Historically, Prince Nasian of the Septimanian Midi was the 5th century ancestor of the Merovingian kings of the Franks, and his descendants also included the 11th century seneschals, Stuards, of Dol and Dinan. These powerful major domus of Brittany were descended from Lancelot's mother, Vivienne II Del Acqs, dynastic queen of Avalon, and were progenitors of the most influential of all desposynic strains, the Scots royal house of Stuart.